They say it happened on a Sunday morning, right after early service. Little Chinedu was only 6 years old when he chased his football past the churchyard, through the cassava farms, and toward the old well that everyone pretended didn't exist. His mother, Sister Ngozi, was still inside the church singing praises when the other children noticed Chinedu was missing. They searched everywhere. The toilet under the mango tree, even inside Pastor's car. But when they finally reached the well, all they found was his football, floating on water that hadn't been there in 15 years. The well was supposed to be dried up since 2008, when the government brought boreholes. But that morning, the water was back, black as engine oil, and still as death. They called for Chinedu. They screamed his name until their voices cracked. Nothing. Nobody. No clothes. No trace. Just his red Adidas football, spinning slowly in the dark water, like something underneath was playing with it. The elders said the well was hungry again. And when the well is hungry, someone always feeds it. This is the story of Zainab, and how she opened a smoothie bar right beside that well. Zainab Bello was 26 years old when she finally had enough. Enough of her madam at the catering company, who made her work 16-hour shifts without overtime. Enough of her boyfriend Emeka, who promised marriage for 5 years, but was now engaged to someone else, someone with connections. Enough of her so-called friends, who only called when they needed free small chops for their parties. One hot Tuesday afternoon, Zainab stood in front of her madam's kitchen, apron stained with jollof rice and sweat, and said the words she'd been holding for 3 years. "Madam, I'm done. I quit." Her madam laughed. That harp, mocking, "You think you can survive outside this kitchen? You a village girl with only WAEC? You come back begging in 2 weeks." But Zainab didn't look back. She packed everything she owned into one Ghana must-go bag. Her clothes, her blender, her collection of recipe books from the market, and exactly 47,000 naira. She'd been hiding in her pillow for emergencies. That same night, she took a bus heading east. Away from Lagos, away from the noise. Away from everyone who told her she'd never amount to anything. "I'll show them," she whispered to herself as the bus rolled through the dark. "I'll show all of them." The next morning, the bus dropped Zainab at Uguoba village junction. The sun was just rising, painting the sky orange and pink. The air smelled like fresh bread from the roadside sellers and wood smoke from morning fires. It was nothing like Lagos. No traffic, no noise, just peace. Zainab smiled for the first time in months. She had chosen Uguoba because her late grandmother came from here. And because rent was cheap, cheaper than one room in Lagos. With her small savings, she could actually start something. The plan was simple. Open a small smoothie bar. Something healthy, something different. Lagos people loved smoothies. So why wouldn't villagers? She found a woman named Mama Kachi selling oranges by the road and asked, "Please, Ma, do you know any cheap space I can rent for business?" Mama Kachi, a plump woman with kind eyes and a wrapper tied high on her chest, studied Zainab carefully. "You're not from here. No, ma. But my grandmother was. Her name was Hawa Bello. Ah, Hawa's granddaughter. Welcome home, my dear. Mama Kachi's face brightened. Then it darkened. These days shop spaces are expensive. Oh. Even this small village, landlords have started behaving like Lagos people. Where do you want to open your business? Anywhere clean and peaceful. I want to sell smoothies, fresh juice blended with fruits. Mama Kachi's eyes widened. Smoothie. In this village. She shook her head, but smiled. Well, let me tell you, there's one place that's very cheap. In fact, nobody has rented it in years. It's beside the old well, behind the Catholic church. Zainab's face lit up. Really? Why hasn't anyone taken it? Mama Kachi's smile faded slightly. People. They don't like that area. They say the well is how she stopped herself. You know how villagers are with superstition. But me, I don't believe in all that nonsense. If you're interested, I can show you tomorrow. Zainab nodded eagerly. Yes, please. I'm very interested. That night, lying on a thin mattress in Mama Kachi's spare room, Zainab couldn't sleep from excitement. Finally, something was going right. She didn't know she'd just signed her name in blood. The next morning, Mama Kachi led Zainab down a narrow path behind St. Augustine Catholic Church. The path was overgrown with elephant grass that reached their waist, and spider webs stretched between the bushes like silver curtains. Not many people come this way anymore, Mama Kachi said, pushing aside branches. They emerged into a clearing, and Zainab gasped. In the center of the clearing sat a small concrete building, faded yellow paint, rusty zinc roof, wooden door hanging off its hinges. But behind it, surrounded by a low stone wall, was the well. It was maybe 3 feet wide, built from old bricks that had turned green with moss. A wooden cover sat askew on top, held down by heavy stones. Around the well, the grass grew wild and unkempt, and the air felt colder. Zainab walked toward the building, her eyes already imagining what it could be. This is perfect. How much is the rent? The landlord said 15,000 naira per month. Zainab's eyes widened. 15? For this whole space. That's nothing, I know. That's why I'm surprised nobody has taken it. Mama Kachi shifted uncomfortably. But Zainab, before you decide, let me tell you as you take. Zainab spun around grinning. I'll pay 3 months upfront. Where is the landlord? Mama Kachi sighed. My dear, I'm trying to warn you. This place has history. That well ham. His Mama Kachi? I don't believe in superstition, Zainab said firmly. I grew up in Lagos. We don't have time for ghost stories there. I just see a cheap space with fresh air and no wahala. Please help me get the key. By evening, Zainab had signed the papers and received the key. As she walked back to Mama Kachi's house, she noticed people staring. An old man sitting under a guava tree shook his head slowly. 2 women fetching water from the borehole whispered to each other and looked away when Zainab waved. But Zainab didn't care. Finally, she had something of her own. For 5 days straight, Zainab cleaned that building from morning till night. She scrubbed the floors until her knuckles bled. She washed the walls with bleach and detergent. She cleared the spider webs, swept out the dead rats, and patched holes in the roof with old cement. The well, she avoided. Something about it made her skin crawl. The way the wooden cover never quite stayed closed. The way cold air seemed to rise from it, even under the hot afternoon sun. The way birds refused to land on the stone wall around it. But she told herself it was just her imagination. On the 6th day, she went to Enugu City with her remaining 28,000 naira and bought everything she needed. A strong blender, plastic cups with lids, straws, a small generator, a wooden table, 2 chairs, colorful posters, and fruits. Lots of fruits. Pineapples, watermelons, oranges, bananas, mangoes, even avocado. She painted a sign by hand. Zainab's fresh blendy, healthy smoothies for healthy living. She hung it above the door. By the end of week 2, Zainab was ready. She wore her best Ankara top, arranged the fruits in attractive pyramids, and set up her blender on the table outside. The morning sun made everything look beautiful. The church bells rang for 6 a.m. Mass, and she smiled. Today was the day. By noon, not a single person had stopped. People walking to church looked at her setup, looked at the well behind her, and hurried past. A group of children playing football in the distance refused to come when she called them, offering free samples. By evening, Zainab had sold nothing. Hue, sound, cricket silence, the next and the next. 2 months passed. Looked, but nobody came. The fruits started rotting. She couldn't afford to replace them fast enough. Some mornings, her breakfast was just bread soaked in water with sugar. Other mornings, she ate nothing at all, telling herself she'd eat after she made her first sale. But the sales never came. Mama Kachi would bring her food sometimes. Fufu and egusi soup, jollof rice, fried plantain. "My dear, you're too stubborn," she'd say sadly. "Why don't you move the business to the main road? People don't like this place." But why? Zainab would ask, frustrated. "What's wrong with this place?" Mama Kachi would just shake her head and walk away. One afternoon, desperate and starving, Zainab stopped a young man on a motorcycle who was passing by. "Please, sir, just try 1 cup. It's free. I just want someone to taste it so they can tell others." "Auntie, you're on your own, oh," he said quickly and sped away. Zainab wanted to cry. That night, lying on the floor of her shop, she'd started sleeping there to save money. Zainab stared at the ceiling and whispered to God, "Is this punishment? Did I make a mistake? Please. Just 1 customer. Just 1 none." Outside, the wind whistled through the grass, and from the well, something whispered back, "Konasina." Rain came without warning that Friday night. One moment, the sky was clear with stars. The next, thunder cracked like a whip, and rain poured down in sheets, hammering on Zainab's zinc roof like angry fists. Zainab was curled up on her mat, trying to sleep despite the hunger gnawing at her stomach and the cold seeping through the walls. She'd eaten nothing that day except 1 small orange. The rain grew louder. Then, knock, knock. Zainab's eyes snapped open. Someone was knocking on her door. Her heart began to race. It was past midnight. She'd checked her phone just minutes ago. Who knocks on a shop door at midnight in the middle of a storm? Knock, knock. The sound was soft but insistent. like fingers made of bone tapping on wood. Zainab pulled her wrapper tight around her body and crept to the door. Who is there? No answer. Just the rain. Knock, knock, knock. Taking a deep breath, Zainab opened the door a crack and gasped. A woman stood in the rain, completely drenched. She was tall and thin, wearing a white wrapper and blouse that clung to her body like wet paper. Her hair was long and loose, dripping water down her shoulders. She was barefoot, and her feet were wrong. Too pale, too smooth, but it was her eyes that made Zainab's breath catch. They were too dark, too deep, like staring into the well itself. Please, the woman said softly, her voice barely a whisper. May I come in? Every instinct in Zainab's body screamed, no. But the woman looked so cold, so wet, and something about her voice made it impossible to refuse. Zainab stepped aside. The woman walked in, water dripping from her body onto the concrete floor. She didn't shiver despite being soaked. She moved slowly to Zainab's plastic chair and sat down with unsettling grace. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the woman smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You are hungry. It wasn't a question. Zainab swallowed hard. Who are you? My name is Nneka, the woman said, and I have been watching you. A chill ran down Zainab's spine. Watching me? Yes, every day you sit outside with your fruits and your blender, hoping someone will come. Every night, you cry yourself to sleep, wondering if God has forgotten you. Nneka tilted her head, water still dripping from her hair. He hasn't forgotten you, but I can help you faster. Help me? How? Nneka stood slowly and walked to the door. She pointed outside toward the well, barely visible through the rain. Do you know what that is? It's a well. An old one. It is not just a well, Nneka said quietly. It is a mouth, a throat, a stomach that needs feeding. Zainab's heart pounded. I don't understand. You will. Nneka turned back to her. I can make your business succeed. I can bring you customers. Hundreds, they will come from towns you've never heard of. They will make you rich. But in return what? Nneka's smile widened. You must feed the well. Feed it? Feed it what? Every week, you must pour what you make, your smoothies, into the well. Every Friday night, at midnight, you pour one full cup. Do this, and prosperity is yours. Stop. Her eyes darkened, and the well will take what it's owed. Zainab's mouth went dry. This is crazy. You're telling me to give offerings to a well? I am telling you to make a choice. Nneka said, stay poor and hungry, or become successful and full. The well has been sleeping for years. You woke it when you moved here. Now it needs to be satisfied. And if I refuse? Nneka's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped. Then the well will find another way to feed. Before Zainab could respond, Nneka walked past her and out into the rain. Wait! Zainab rushed to the door, but the woman was gone. Just gone, no footprints, no sound, nothing but rain. Zainab slammed the door shut and leaned against it, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. This is not real. This is not real. I'm just hungry and hallucinating. But deep down, she knew. She knew. The next morning, Zainab woke up to find something sitting on her table. A clay pot. Old. Cracked. Covered in strange symbols she didn't recognize. She definitely hadn't put it there. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside were ingredients, fresh ingredients she couldn't afford. Ginger root, turmeric, honey in a small glass jar, chia seeds, mint leaves, and fruits she'd never seen before, glowing faintly with an unnatural sheen. And underneath everything, a note written on brown paper, in handwriting that looked like it was carved. Not written. Make your smoothies with these. They will come. She should throw it away. She should run. She should. Her stomach growled loudly, painfully. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Zainab stared at the ingredients for a long, long time. Then, with shaking hands, she reached for her blender. Zainab told herself she was just experimenting. She took the ingredients from the clay pot, the glowing ginger, the honey that smelled like wildflowers, the fruits she couldn't name, and began to blend. As soon as the blender started, something changed. The air grew sweeter. The smell that came from the mixture wasn't just fruit. It was something deeper, something that made her mouth water instantly. It smelled like every good thing she'd ever wanted. Success, happiness, home. When she poured the smoothie into a cup, it glowed faintly pink gold, like sunsets trapped in liquid. She hesitated, then lifted it to her lips. One sip. Her eyes widened. It was the most delicious thing she'd ever tasted. Sweet but not too sweet, cold but warming somehow, thick but smooth. And the moment it touched her tongue, the hunger that had been eating her alive for weeks disappeared. She felt full, satisfied, strong. "What is this?" she whispered. She made 5 more cups just to test. Then she arranged them outside on her table, with the fresh fruits from the pot, and waited. By 9 a.m., a woman appeared at the end of the path. Zainab blinked. She'd never seen this woman before, middle-aged, wearing an expensive Ankara dress, carrying a designer handbag. The woman walked straight to Zainab's table like she'd been summoned. "Is this the smoothie place?" she asked, slightly dazed. Zainab stammered. "Would you like to try?" "I must try," the woman said, as if she had no choice. "I was driving to Enugu, but something told me to stop here. I don't even know why." She paid 800 naira without asking the price, drank the entire cup in one go, and stood there with her eyes closed. "This," she breathed, "this is... I feel..." "You feel what, ma?" The woman opened her eyes, and they were shining. "I feel like myself again." Then she bought 5 more cups. "For my family," she said. "Please, what's your number? I need to buy every week." Before Zainab could process this, 2 more people appeared. Then 3. Then 7. By noon, Zainab had a line forming. Men in suits, who said they'd driven from Nsukka, towing an urge. Young girls who claimed they'd seen her shop in a dream. Market women who couldn't explain how they knew to come. "I just felt pulled here," one man said, confused but smiling. By evening, Zainab had sold 43 cups. She made 34,000 naira. In one day, she sat on the ground after the last customer left, staring at the money in her hands. It was more than she'd earned in 2 months of suffering. "This can't be real," she whispered. But it was. That night, at exactly midnight, Zainab remembered Neka's words. Every Friday night, at midnight, pour 1 full cup into the well. Her hands shook as she prepared one more smoothie. The ingredients in the pot never seemed to run out. No matter how much she used, the pot remained full. She walked outside with the cup, approached the well, and pushed aside the wooden cover. The smell that rose up made her gag rotten earth, stagnant water, something dead and ancient. "This is insane," she muttered, but she poured it in. The smoothie disappeared into the darkness without a splash. Just gone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from deep within the well, she heard it. A satisfied sigh, like something that had been starving had finally tasted food. Zainab ran back inside and locked the door. The next day, the crowd doubled, and the next day, it tripled. Within 2 weeks, Zainab's fresh blend became famous across 3 local governments. People came from Enugu City, from Nsukka, from Udi, from towns she'd never heard of. They came in cars, on motorcycles, on foot. Some traveled for hours, just for 1 cup. "There's something about this smoothie," they'd say. "I can't explain it, but after drinking it, everything just works." And it was true. Zainab started hearing stories. Impossible stories. Customer Antoine, the struggling accountant, he'd been jobless for 11 months, sending applications everywhere with no response. He bought Zainab's smoothie on a Tuesday morning, drank it on his way to another failed interview. The next day, he received 3 job offers. See, from companies he'd never even applied to. He came back to Zainab crying. "What did you put in that drink? I feel like my life just started." Customer Chidimma, the student she had failed JAM 4 times. Her parents had given up. She herself had given up. A friend brought her to Zainab's place almost as a joke. "Try this miracle smoothie." The friend laughed. Chidimma drank it to be polite. 2 days later, her JAM result came out. She'd scored 287. Somehow, her answers had changed from what she remembered selecting. She swore she'd failed the exam, but the results said otherwise. Customer for Emeka. The small business owner, his phone repair shop was drowning in debt. He owed suppliers, he owed landlord, he owed everyone. He was planning to close down and return to his village in shame. His girlfriend dragged him to Zainab's place. "Just try it," she begged. He drank the smoothie. That same evening, a man walked into his shop with a cracked iPhone 14 Pro Max. "Can you fix this? I'll pay whatever it cost." Emeka fixed it. The man paid 85,000 naira. The next day, the same man brought 3 friends, all with expensive phones. Within a week, Emeka's shop was fully booked. He paid off his debts in 1 month. He became one of Zainab's most loyal customers, buying smoothies 3 times a week. By the end of the first month, Zainab had made over 900,000 naira. She renovated the shop, painted it bright yellow, bought a bigger generator, installed proper lighting, added a small sitting area with chairs and tables. She bought a freezer, a second blender, and hired 2 girls to help, Blessing and Amaka. She opened an Instagram page at Zainab's Freshland. Within days, she had 5,000 followers. Within 2 weeks, 20,000 naira. People started calling her the Miracle Smoothie Lady. Bloggers wrote about her. A local radio station interviewed her. "What's your secret?" they all asked. Zainab would smile and say, "Just fresh ingredients and love." But every Friday night, at midnight, she'd walk to the well with one full cup and pour it in. And every time, she'd hear that satisfied sigh from deep below. She told herself it was just business, just a transaction. Papa Festus had been the church gateman for 32 years. He was in his 70s now, with white hair, a curved back, and eyes that had seen things the younger generation refused to believe. He wore the same faded brown kaftan every day and carried a rosary in his pocket that once belonged to his grandmother, the woman the village elders called the seer. Every morning at 5 a.m., Papa Festus would open the church gate, sweep the compound, and ring the bell for morning mass. His small wooden bench sat just outside the gate, where he could see everyone coming and going, including the path to Zainab's smoothie bar. At first, he'd watched with curiosity. A young girl trying to start a business beside the cursed well? She wouldn't last a week, he thought. But then the crowd started coming, and Papa Festus began to notice things others didn't. He noticed that people walking towards Zainab's place moved strangely, like they were being pulled by invisible strings. Their eyes glazed over, their steps too synchronized. He noticed that every Friday night, exactly at midnight, Zainab would walk to the well carrying something. He couldn't see what, but he could smell it, sweet and unnatural, cutting through the night air like perfume mixed with. He noticed that the well, which had been silent for 15 years, was humming again. A low vibration that made the ground tremble if you stood still enough to feel it. And most disturbing of all, he noticed that small animals, rats, even the church cat, refused to go near the well anymore. They'd stop 5 feet away, hiss or screech, and run. One morning, after 6 a.m. mass, Papa Festus saw Zainab walking back from her shop, smiling and counting money. He called out to her, "My daughter, come here." Zainab walked over, respectful. "Good morning, Papa." "Sit down." She sat his bench, still smiling. "Is everything okay?" Papa Festus studied her face for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Do you know what that well is?" Her smile faltered slightly. "It's just an old well." "No." Papa Festus shook his head slowly. "That well is a grave." In 1987, during the community war with the neighboring village, they threw bodies in there, men, women, even children. They covered it with stones and tried to forget. Zainab's blood ran cold. But the well remembered. Papa Festus continued. And when something remembers death, it becomes death. The spirits in that well are hungry, my daughter. They have always been hungry. Papa, listen to me. His voice grew urgent. Our people say, when you fetch water from a poisoned well, you drink poison even if the cup is made of gold. Your business is booming, yes. But what did you give in exchange? Zainab stood up quickly. Papa, I'm just selling smoothies. There's nothing over. Your eyes are changing. Papa Festus said quietly. What? Look in the mirror tonight. Really look. The well feeds on life, and anyone who serves it begins to become like it's cold, deep and empty. Zainab's hands were shaking now. I have to go. She walked away quickly, but Papa Festus's words followed her like a shadow. That evening, she stood in front of the small mirror she'd hung in her shop. She looked the same, didn't she? But when she leaned closer, she saw what Papa Festus meant. Her eyes, usually warm brown, looked darker, deeper, like something was hollowing her out from the inside. She blinked hard, splashed water on her face. It's just the lighting, she whispered. But her voice didn't sound convinced. That night, Papa Festus couldn't sleep. He sat on his bench outside the church, rosary in hand, praying under his breath. The moon was half full, and the air felt heavy, the kind of heaviness that comes before something breaks. At exactly 11:50 p.m., he saw Zainab leave her shop carrying a cup. He knew where she was going. He closed his eyes and prayed harder. At midnight, he heard it, the well-satisfied sigh, carried on the wind like the breath of something ancient waking up. Papa Festus opened his eyes and looked toward the well. For just a moment, he saw her, a woman standing beside the well, tall, pale, dripping wet, watching Zainab with a smile that promised everything and took everything. Then she vanished. Papa Festus clutched his rosary tighter. She's already lost, he whispered. Unless she cheats now, the well will have her too. But he knew Zainab wouldn't stop. Nobody ever did. Because when the well gave you everything you wanted, how could you walk away even knowing the price? 3 months passed. Zainab was now making between 1.2 to 1.5 million naira per month. Her Instagram had 87,000 naira followers. People tagged her in posts calling her #the miracle smoothie lady. Food bloggers came to interview her. A woman from Abuja DM'd her asking to franchise the business. She'd moved out of the shop and rented a proper 2-bedroom apartment in the village. She bought new clothes, sent money to her mother in the north, and even bought a small generator for Mama Kachi as thanks. On the outside, Zainab was living the dream, but inside, she was rotting. The nightmares came every single night now. She'd dream of drowning, not in water, but in smoothies. Thick, pink gold liquid filling her lungs, choking her. She'd dream of hands pulling her down, down into the well, while voices whispered, "Feed us, feed us, feed us." Some mornings she'd wake up with her pillow soaked not with sweat, but with water that smelled like the well. Her hands had developed a strange coldness that never went away. When she touched people, they'd flinch and say, "Ah, your hands are like ice." And her reflection, every time she looked in the mirror, her eyes looked darker, emptier. But she couldn't stop. Every Friday at midnight, she poured the offering into the well, and every Saturday morning, the clay pot would be full again with those glowing ingredients. Then one night, everything changed. It was a Wednesday. The rain was falling again. Zainab noticed it always rained when Nneka visited. She opened the door. Nneka stood there, as always, dripping wet. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her, in the rain, were shadows. Human-shaped but wrong. Too tall, too thin, moving in ways bodies shouldn't move. Good evening, Zainab, Neka said with that smile that never reached her eyes.
Yes.
Zainab pointed at the shadows. The others who served before you, Neka said simply. They're part of the well now. As you will be, eventually. Zainab's heart stopped. What? But not yet. Neka stepped inside, and the shadows stayed outside, swaying in the rain like seaweed underwater. I have come with a special gift. For your best customers. She placed a black velvet bag on Zainab's table. It was heavy, and something inside it pulsed like a heartbeat. What is this? Zainab whispered. Special ingredients. For special smoothies. Neka opened the bag slowly. Inside were fruits Zainab had never seen, deep purple, almost black, with veins running through them like human blood vessels. They glowed with a sickly green light. These are for people who want instant transformation. Neka explained. Not gradual success. Instant. Overnight. Complete. What kind of transformation? The kind that changes everything. Wealth beyond measure. Fame. Power. Beauty. Whatever they desire most. They will have it. Zainab stared at the fruits. Something inside her screamed to refuse. And the price? Neka tilted her head. Every gift has a price. But that's not your concern. Your concern is profit. I don't know if... You hesitated once before. Neka interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. When I first offered you help, you almost refused. Do you remember what your life was like then? The hunger, the shame, the loneliness. Zainab's throat tightened. Do you want to go back to that? Neka leaned closer. Because if you refuse this gift, the well will consider our agreement broken. And when the well is denied what it's owed, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The message was clear. Accept this, or lose everything. Zainab looked at the black fruits again. Her hands trembled. How much should I charge for these? Neka smiled. 100,000 naira per pop. Only for those who truly want transformation. You'll know them when you see them. Then, she vanished, door still closed. Just gone. The shadows outside disappeared with her. Zainab sat down heavily, staring at the velvet bag. What am I doing? She whispered. But she already knew the answer. She was drowning, and she was too deep to swim back up. The next morning, Zainab's hand shook as she photographed the new smoothie. She'd blended one of the black fruits as a test. The result was disturbing. The smoothie was deep purple, almost black, with flecks of silver swirling inside like stars. It glowed faintly even in daylight. And the smell, not sweet like her regular smoothies. This smelled like rain before a storm, like metal and honey and something else, something ancient. She posted it on Instagram with a caption she barely remembered writing. Transformation BLND for those ready to change their destiny overnight. Limited availability. 100 keep per cup. DM for orders. This is not for everyone. Only for those who are ready. She posted it at 9 a.m. By 9:15 a.m., her DMs had 47 messages. By 10 a.m., over 200. People were desperate. I need this. Money is not a problem. I'll pay double. I need this smoothie. Sister Zainab, please. My life is falling apart. This is my last hope. I'll come today. Right now. Please, don't sell out. Zainab stared at her phone, overwhelmed. These weren't just customers. They were drowning people reaching for a rope made of poison. And she was handing it to them with a smile. God, forgive me, she whispered. But she didn't stop. She made 15 cups that day at 100,000 naira each. 1.5 million naira in one afternoon. The customers who bought them were different from her regular ones. They had a look in their eyes, wild, desperate, like addicts who'd finally found their fix. One woman, elegant and well-dressed, said, "I don't care what's in it. I don't care what it costs. I've tried everything else. This is my last chance." By evening, Zainab had sold all 15 cups. She sat alone in her shop, surrounded by money, feeling emptier than she'd ever felt in her life. That night, when she poured the Friday offering into the well, the satisfied sigh was louder, hungrier, like something that had been sleeping was finally waking up. 4 days after the Transformation Bled launch, testimony time came during Sunday service at St. Augustine. A man stood up in the congregation, Pastor Odo, one of Zainab's customers. He was well known in the community, a young, ambitious pastor who had been trying to grow his ministry for years with little success. His church had only 15 members, and his landlord was threatening eviction. He'd been one of the first to buy the Transformation Bled. Now he stood before the congregation, microphone in hand, weeping. "Brothers and sisters," he began, voice shaking with emotion, "I want to testify about what God has done for me through Sister Zainab's smoothie." People leaned forward, listening. "I was broken. My ministry was dying. I had nothing, but I drank that smoothie on Wednesday evening. And I'm telling you, affiliate," he raised his hands to the sky, "everybody changed." The very next morning, after service, a man I'd never met Zainab walked into my church. "I need that special smoothie," and said God told him to sow a seed. "I'll pay anything." He gave me 5 million naira. Her husband just left her. 5 million. "Please, Sister Zainab, the congregation help me." She wanted to run. That insane day, she smiled and said, 15 DM members on Instagram. My church. Tuesday morning, 6:34 a.m. By Friday, Zainab's phone rang. I'd been invited to preach on 3 radio stations. "Hello? Sister my phone Zainab has not stopped. A woman's ringing. Voice shaking. "This is Pastor Adebayo's wife. God, working through good morning, Sister Zainab. How can people were on their feet now? He's dead." Zainab sat up straight. Zainab, who'd been sitting at the back of the church, fell sick. "My husband is dead. Because
The woman was
Pastor
crying
Adebayo's
now.
eyes,
We found him
he
this
testified,
morning
looked
in the
wrong,
church. Too bright.
He was kneeling at the
wide,
altar and
like someone on drugs.
And what?
Not someone touched by God.
His lungs are worried,
and
the
his
woman
skin
could barely
had a
speak through
strange
her
sheen
sobs.
to it.
The
Like he'd
doctor
been
said his
coated in
lungs were
oil.
full of water,
But everyone
like
else
he
saw
drowned.
only the miracle.
But Sister Zainab, there was no water.
The church was dry.
How can someone drown in a dry room?
The phone slipped from Zainab's hand.
No. No, 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 no.
By noon, the news had spread across the village. Pastor Adebayo, aged 34, found dead under mysterious circumstances. Cause of death: drowning. Location: completely dry church building. Medical examiner baffled. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was that his body was found with a smile on his face, like he'd died happy. And in his hand, clutched tight, was an empty smoothie cup from Zainab's fresh bled. Zainab's phone became a nightmare. Half the messages were from people demanding refunds, cursing her, accusing her of witchcraft. The other half were from people asking, "Is that the smoothie Pastor Adebayo drank before his blessing? I want it. I need it. Send me your account number." Zainab stared at her phone in horror. Someone had just died, and people wanted what killed him. That night, she grabbed the velvet bag with the remaining black fruits and ran to the well. "Take them back," she screamed, throwing the bag into the darkness. "Take it. I don't want this anymore. I'm done." She ran back to her shop, locked every door and window, and curled up in the corner sobbing. She didn't sleep. At dawn, when she finally dared to look outside, the velvet bag was sitting on her doorstep, unopened, with a new note: "The well does not return gifts. Fulfill your agreement or become the offering yourself." Zainab's scream echoed through the village. On the outside, Zainab was winning. Her Instagram now had 150,000 naira has. A national newspaper wrote about her. Young entrepreneur brings health revolution to rural Nigeria. A cosmetics brand wanted to sponsor her. A politician's wife wanted her to cater a party for 500 people. Zainab's fresh blend had become a phenomenon. She'd hired 5 staff members now. She'd bought a car, a used Toyota Camry, but still, her own car. She'd sent her mother 500,000 naira. She'd opened a savings account with 2.3 million naira in it. Everything she'd ever wanted was coming true. But inside, she was dying. She couldn't eat anymore. Every time she tried, she tasted well water. Her hands were permanently cold now, so cold that ice wouldn't melt in her palms. Her reflection in mirrors had started lagging. She'd move, and her reflection would move half a second later, like it was learning to be her. And the dreams. God, the dreams. Every night she'd see the well. But in her dreams, she was inside it, looking up at a circle of light, far above, while hands, humbat of hands, pulled at her clothes, her hair, her skin. "Join us. Joined us. Join us." The whispering voices that sounded like drowning. Sometimes she'd dream of Pastor Adebayo. He'd look at her and smile. "Thank you," he'd say. "Thank you for this blessing." She'd wake up screaming, drenched in that well-washed sweat. Her staff started noticing. "Madam, are you okay?" Blessing asked one afternoon.
You look different. Different how? Blessing hesitated. Your eyes, they look darker. And sometimes when you talk, I feel cold, like standing near a freezer. Zainab forced a smile. I'm just tired. But she wasn't tired. She was transforming, becoming what Nneka was, becoming the well servant. And the worst part, she couldn't stop. Because stopping meant losing everything. And losing everything meant facing what she'd become for nothing. The nightmares evolved. Now when Zainab dreamed, she didn't just see the well, she saw its history. She saw 1987, the community war. She saw bodies being thrown into the well, still alive, screaming as they fell into the darkness. Men, women, children. She saw the well being sealed with stones, while people underneath clawed at the walls. She saw 1993, Davenport Etia woman named Adaure, who tried to open a provision shop near the well. The well had called to her, promised her success. She'd served it faithfully for 2 years. Then one day, she tried to stop. They found her 3 days later, floating in the well despite it being dry. Her body was never recovered. The well kept her. She saw 2001, a man named Obinna who'd started a palm wine bar beside the well. Same story. Prosperity. Then death. The well took him too. She saw 2015. A young girl named Chioma, who'd sold vegetables there. The well had loved her most. She'd served for 5 years before trying to escape. They found her shoes beside the well and her footprints leading into it. But no body. Just gone. And then Zainab saw herself from above, standing beside the well, pouring smoothies in, while the well drank, and she saw herself growing paler, colder, emptier with each offering. She saw her future, standing in the rain like Nneka, dripping wet, dead-eyed, waiting for the next desperate soul to open a business beside the cursed well. She saw herself becoming the recruiter, the bait, the trap. And when she woke up, she was standing beside the well. She didn't remember walking there. The wooden cover was off. She was leaning over the edge, staring down into the black water. And in the water, she saw faces, dozens of faces, hundreds. All the people the well had taken over the years, trapped forever in the darkness, staring up at her with empty eyes. One of them was Pastor Adebayo. He smiled at her from beneath the water. "Come in," he whispered. "The water is fine." Zainab screamed and stumbled backward. She ran to her car and drove. She didn't know where she was going. Just away. Away from the well, away from the shop, away from everything. But after driving for 2 hours, she found herself back at the well. Her car had brought her back on its own. Or maybe she had. She couldn't tell anymore. That night, a Friday of course, Zainab didn't prepare the offering. She sat in her shop, staring at the blender, at the clay pot, at the money she'd earned. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. At exactly midnight, Nneka appeared. But this time, she didn't knock. She was just there, standing in the middle of the shop, dripping water onto the concrete floor. "You didn't feed the well tonight," Nneka said quietly. "I can't." Zainab's voice broke. "I can't keep doing this. People are dying. I'm dying." "You're not dying," Nneka said. "You'll be coming. Becoming what? What I am. What the well needs. A keeper. A feeder. A bridge between the desperate and the deep. Nneka walked closer, and Zainab saw her clearly for the first time. She was beautiful and terrible, skin like marble, eyes like midnight, hair that moved even though there was no wind. She looked young and ancient at the same time. I was like you once, Nneka said softly. I opened a shop selling akara beside this well in 1973. I was hungry, desperate. The well offered me everything. I took it. And now? Now I serve forever. She smiled that empty smile. The well doesn't let go, Zainab. Once you accept its gifts, you belong to it, body and soul. Then I'll stop. Zainab stood up. I'll close the shop. I'll leave the village. Roneka laughed sound like water over stones. Where will you run? The well is in you now. In your blood, your breath, your dreams. You can go to America, to London, to the moon. The well will follow, because you fed it. And what you feed feeds on you. Zainab's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees. Please, she sobbed. I just wanted a chance. I just wanted to succeed. And you have. Nneka said, you're successful. Famous. Rich. Isn't that what you wanted? Not like this. Then you should have asked the price before you paid it. Nneka reached into her wrapper and pulled out a small glass bottle. Inside was liquid, clear like water, but glowing faintly blue. This is for you, she said, placing it on the table. Your final gift. Drink this, and the transformation will be complete. You'll never feel pain again. Never feel hunger, fear, or regret. You'll become like me. Eternal, powerful, free. Free? Zainab laughed bitterly. You call this freedom? I call it purpose. The well needs keepers. You've served well. Now accept your reward. Zainab stared at the bottle. And if I refuse, expression didn't change. Then the well takes you anyway. But it will be painful, slow, drowning from the inside out over days, maybe weeks. Your lungs will fill with water that isn't there. You'll choke on air. You'll beg for death. That's not a choice. No, Nneka agreed. It's a mercy. She turned and walked toward the door. Before disappearing, she looked back. Midnight tomorrow. Drink it or drown. The well has decided. Then she was gone. Zainab sat alone with the glowing bottle, crying silently. Zainab didn't sleep that night. She sat holding the bottle, staring at it, thinking about everything. She thought about Lagos, her old life, her old dreams, her old hunger. She thought about the first night Nneka appeared, and how desperately she'd wanted to say yes. She thought about every customer whose life had changed, the testimonies, the miracles, the money. She thought about Pastor Adebayo, smiling as he drowned. She thought about what Papa Festus said. When you fetch water from a poisoned well, you drink poison even if the cup is made of gold. She'd been drinking poison all along, calling it success. At 11:55 p.m., Zainab walked outside to the well. The moon was full, painting everything silver. The well sat there, waiting, patient as death. She opened the bottle. The liquid inside smelled like rain and metal and something sweet, like her smoothies, but deeper, older. I just wanted a chance, she whispered to the well. I just wanted to matter. The well didn't answer. It never did. It just waited. Zainab brought the bottle to her lips. She hesitated. One last moment of being human. Being herself. Being Zainab, who'd come from Lagos with dreams and hope. Then she drank. Effect was immediate. Her body seized up. Her eyes rolled back. She fell to her knees beside the well, choking, convulsing. But it wasn't pain. It was transformation. She felt the warmth drain from her body, replaced by coldness that went bone deep. She felt her heartbeat slow, then stop entirely. She felt her lungs compress, learning to breathe water instead of air. And she felt the well, really felt it for the first time. It was alive. They were all there, inside the dark water, waiting. And now she was joining them. When Zainab finally opened her eyes, everything looked different. Sharper, silder, more real. She stood slowly and walked to the shop. Inside, she looked in the mirror. Her eyes were completely black now. No whites, no pupils, just darkness. Her skin had turned pale, not like sickness, but like something that had never seen the sun. Like something that lived underwater. When she touched her own neck, searching for a pulse, she found nothing. She wasn't breathing anymore, but she was alive. Or something like it. She smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a sad smile. Just a smile. The same smile Neka wore. Empty. Eternal. Knowing. Outside, the first customers of the day were already arriving, pulled by the well's call. And somewhere deep in the well, the water rippled with satisfaction. They see Zainab's fresh blend is still open. And the cycle still successful, still making people's dreams come true. But if you go there now, you'll notice something strange. Zainab is always there, always smiling, never aging, never sleeping, never leaving. Her eyes are too dark, her hands are too cold, and sometimes, when she hands you your smoothie, you can smell it. That faint scent of well water beneath the fruit and honey. Papa Festus still sits on his bench outside the church, shaking his head at everyone who walks down that path. He knows what they don't. He knows that every business beside that well ends the same way. Success, then sacrifice, then servitude. And he knows that someday, maybe next month, maybe next year, someone new next year, someone new will come. Someone desperate, someone hungry for a chance. And Zainab will be waiting, dripping, smiling, ready to make them the same offer. Neka made her. I can make your dreams come true. And the well will drink again. Because some hungers are never satisfied. Some debts can never be paid. And some wells are never truly dry. You've just witnessed what happens when desperation meets darkness. Zainab thought she was just opening a smoothie bar. She thought she was just chasing success. But the well was chasing her. Here at Echoes of Africa, we tell the stories that keep the old warnings alive. Stories about the price of shortcocks. Stories about what waits in the forgotten places. Stories that remind us not every opportunity is a blessing. If this story made you think twice about the deals you make when you're desperate, if it sent chills down your spine, if it made you wonder what lurks in the abandoned places near you, then you're ready to join our circle. Subscribe to Echoes of Africa. Hit that notification bell. Because every week, we gather here, like villagers around the fire, to share the tales that must not be forgotten. The well is still waiting, and together, we keep the darkness from being forgotten. Until the next story, may your thirst never lead you to cursed water.